Don't worry, I have not forgotten about the 60-second news roundup. We'll deal with that a little bit later on today. I've just needs to get this video out. I've actually got sports day, not mine, my daughter's sports day today. And the answer is no, by the way. I will not be running in the dad's race, just so as you know. It'll be more like a granddad's race. These dads, they're like in their late 20s and early 30s and things like that. I am, yeah. Know your limitations and all that, right? So I won't be doing that one. I'll do the 60-second roundup a little bit later on, and just a brief reminder, really, that we have got our raffle, our Hammers Chat raffle, signed Kevin Nolan's shirt, signed Jared Bowen's shirt, DiCanio armband, Dick's armband, I believe. Tickets are $5 each. Closes next Wednesday. If you buy 2 tickets, you get a third one for free. Go and check it out. Links in the description below. Go and read the reviews and read the other people that have won stuff with us. It is a bit of a mega raffle, and we'd love you to get involved. A great way to support Hammers Chat. Today I want to speak about a message from Karren Brady, Baroness Brady, the vice chairman of West Ham, which I think is completely missed the mark. And I think absolutely dodged what are some really big issues at West Ham, man. And the reason I'm talking about it is because clearly it's a message. It's a message from the board to the fans, which I'm not against, but I feel that if you're going to do that, you probably shouldn't be skirting the issues and the concerns that we have. And I'm going to deal with that in this video because I just wanted to talk about that more. I wanted to talk about transfers, but we absolutely cannot ignore this daily grind of Mohamed Kudus, where the news seems to alter ever so slightly every day. So we basically have a fresh update. I can't be doing a video about it. So for the moment, I'm just going to do a section. We're going to call it the Daily Kudus, and we're going to give you the break news today. Well, I've got to tell you, he's still at the football club. West Ham need him to go, because we need him to bring in some funds. We're not getting all the funds, by the way. Graham Potter's not getting all the funds, but he needs to go. I think the magic number appears to be 65 million. And depending on which day you're going to start reading the news, depends on who are going to be the front runners for Kudus' signature. Today, it is Newcastle United. And the reasoning for that is they wanted Nottingham Forest's Anthony Elanga. Nottingham Forest said, that's no, you're not having him. So they're going to move on to other targets. One of the targets is Kudus. I think the other one is Bakayoko and Adeyemi. Karim Adeyemi at Dortmund. I like this player. I wish we'd have signed him, actually. I wouldn't mind us doing a little swapperoo, a little switcheroo for him. So as it stands at the moment, it appears that Newcastle are interested. I'm just seeing a load of tyre kickers at the moment. That's what I'm seeing. Where I'm seeing... I do think if West Ham received a real proper bid for him, he'd be gone. But it's just a case of, whatever it was. Yesterday, Arsenal were tyre kicking because he changed to the roof agency, changed his agency, and they've got really good connections with Arsenal. So yesterday, Arsenal were favourites. Day before, Chelsea were favourites. Today, Newcastle favourites. Tottenham are still rumoured to be in for him, and Manchester United are as well. It's all going to change tomorrow. But anyway, there you go. That is your Daily Kudus roundup. And back on to what I wanted to talk about today, which was Baroness Brady. Now, Brady has given this update. It's on the West Ham website if you want to go and look for it. And it basically says on the website, a message from Baroness Karren Brady, continuing our journey together. Now, I understand this for what it is. I understand they're going to put a message out there, but I just don't believe it really hits hard enough or gets to our concerns. I'm not going to read the whole lot, but it talks about collaboration. It talks about feedback. There's a lot of stuff about the London Stadium. There's a lot of stuff about stewarding. There's a lot of stuff about the fan advisory board. And look, my opinions on that are, I think the club engage with fans when it suits them or when they're forced to. I think that the big climb down was on the concession ticketing last season, and they should have climbed down. So, but they did have to be dragged kicking and screaming over hot coals to do so. So, I don't want that wrapped up as good news. It was a bad thing that they'd done. They rectified it. good. So I don't want to see them boasting about freezing season ticket prices and stuff like that. It just should be the way it is, because of course we were promised affordable ticketing anyway. But something else we were promised was a world-class team in a world-class stadium. They're falling massively short on that. There are discussions on queues and ways to get into the London Stadium, and that needs sorting. There's no doubt about it. Queuing to get into it is a nightmare. The stop and go signs afterwards. It should, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions, I went to the Olympics in 2012. There were 90,000 fans in that stadium for the Olympics. Plus, the velodrome was on. The basketball arena was on. This all on the same day. And there were, whatever, I don't know, 10,000 fans in the aquatic centre. My point is, when we kicked out at the end of that day, there was 120,000 fans. We all sort of made it to the station okay. And that was before you had the Elizabeth line, which runs another, as I understand it, the Elizabeth line is at least another 15 to 20 trains per hour. So there's more trains now. So I don't know how the infrastructure around the stadium makes people wait with stop and go signs for 45 minutes to leave the stadium with half the number of people. I don't get it. That would be a real thing to do. I don't think they're doing that. But, and I don't want to use the phrase, well, I'm going to use the phrase, rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. But I'm going to, because obviously the suggestion is it doesn't really matter what you do, the outcome is going to be the same. And I just feel that the problems with the London Stadium remain the fact that it's not been converted from an athletic stadium into a football stadium adequately. I don't think that's good enough. Whilst the distance remains from the fans to the players on the pitch, not just in terms of from that first row of fans in row A to the touchline, that's a mass. At its biggest point, that's 23 metres, right? It's not just that, it's the distance between the upper tier and the lower tier, between the two stands. We've got those big trampolines. Basically, we are massively detached from the pitch. And until that is sorted, there are all these other problems are going to be just fixing peripheral and minor things in and around the stadium, which is important that they get sorted. But the bigger issue is not being dealt with on that. So, look, there's lots of stuff there. I know, I've got to be honest, I'm not a big fan of this TIFO stuff. I understand that, because I just find they're really small things to try and mask the big things that are wrong with the problem. And I think you can have all the flags, and don't get me wrong, if someone wants to wave a flag, you know, good luck to you. If they want to set off pyrotechnics before the game, pump in ever more music and do all this stuff, they can do what they want in that sense. But I don't think it probably disguises the main problems at hand at the stadium. Which brings us on to the main part that I want to talk about on this video. I'll read this part. It said, we recently published a web story inviting your questions, not simply to communicate, but to build on that growing sense of openness. I mean, it's hard to read that and not be cynical. A growing sense of openness. Hammers United are collating. We dealt with it, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. We posted the link on this channel where you can give feedback on the stadium. Hopefully that gets fed back to the club. Anyway, a growing sense of openness. The response was phenomenal. Thousands of you from across the world took part. Whilst it's impossible to answer every question in one sitting, we focused on topics that touch the most supporters, from matchday experience and ticketing to safety and atmosphere. I've just dealt with it. We've just spoken about that. It goes on to say, you've got to remember, this is a direct letter from Karren Brady to the fans. So, we received many questions relating to football decisions and player recruitment. However, the truth is that it simply would not be beneficial or appropriate, for reasons of protecting our objectives on the field, to reveal which players Graham Potter is keen to sign in the summer transfer window, which positions he is prioritising, or how we will be spending. Okay, that's the part here for me. Nobody, and I mean nobody, expects the club to say, oh, we're going to go after this player. And these are our transfer targets that Graham Potter really wants. Graham Potter really, really wants Yunus Musa from AC Milan. And we've got £20 million spent on him. Nobody expects that. But just because you can't give detailed messaging doesn't mean that you can't give any messaging at all. For reasons of protecting our objectives, what Brady is saying is that we don't want to divulge our transfer targets because it would ruin the negotiations. It would give our rivals an insight into what we're doing. I think the suggestion is we might lose out on players if we reveal their identity. Nobody's asking for their identity. Nobody. Unfortunately, there is messaging coming from the club, but it's negative messaging. It is, we don't have any money. We have to sell before we can buy. And even most recently, even when we sell players, we're going to take a section of that money and squirrel it away or use it to offset debts. The manager won't be getting everything. That is the messaging. So, whilst the club may not be able to tell us the precise details of who we're buying, the what, where's, when's and why's of it, they can give us a more positive message. Because I'm going to pop down to something else, which I'm probably... Here you go. This is at the end of what Brady was saying. Football is about belief. Every summer brings with it a sense of renewal, or what could be. Well, it should do. It's that Christmas Eve feeling, right? We share that optimism with you. I've got to say, hold on a second. We share that optimism with you, and we'll be doing everything in our power to ensure next season is one of pride, passion and purpose. Right, this is where I just feel, read the room. Your finger's not on the pulse here. There isn't much optimism. There's not. I'm not saying nobody has optimism for next season, but the vast majority of people are worried. They're concerned. They fear we'll get relegated. They get pissed off hearing that we've got no money. And here's where I worry about how disingenuous the messaging might be. Going back to, the truth is that it simply would not be beneficial to reveal which players Graham Potter is keen to sign. But you can reveal that he's going to sign some. Here's what I would rather have seen in this message, which would have been, we're aware that some of our fans are concerned about the upcoming transfer window and transfer activity. We'd like to reassure our wonderful supporters that West Ham aim to be very, very active in the upcoming transfer window and give Graham Potter the players that he feels he needs to revamp this West Ham squad. Something like that. Tweak the words if you want, but that kind of messaging. Because I think she's completely ignored that the opposite messaging has come out, which was skimp, we can't sign anyone yet. It is early in the transfer window, and I think ordinarily maybe we might not worry too much about that. But when that is combined with the messaging that actually we're skint, we don't have any money, then it becomes a concern. I just would have liked this to have done very, very differently. And I do feel there was an opportunity to make a correction, to let people know that actually we are going to be signing some players. Because, and I will, look, Karren Brady, I think we all believe this to be the case, that Karren Brady is responsible for the appointment of Graham Potter. That's her suggestion. It's her family friend. He's best mates, apparently, with Brady's husband, Paul Pesky-Solido. It's her belief that this is the right guy. But as fans, we've had a look. He had half the season. And we've had a look, and I think the majority of us are quite certain that he's going to need some players, that he is not the type of coach that can get the best out of the Lopetegui players, the Moyes players, the Steiner players, whatever you want. He needs his own. We know we've got the oldest squad in the Premier League, or the second oldest squad in the Premier League, whatever you want. We know that he likes to play a possession-based style, and we're West Ham fans. We can see, particularly looking at midfield, that we don't have the players that he needs and that he's going to want to make the progression and make the team in his image. There's enough people that remember, forget Chelsea, you know, anything could have happened there, but remember the team that he crafted at Brighton, and we know enough about football, even if we're not experts, to know that the players he's got at his disposal are not the right kind that can do that stuff. So the fans know he needs to be supported, but the messaging coming from the club is, oh, you know, it's going to be tricky for us. Because if that happens, we are in trouble. And I just wonder how far off the pulse they are when they say the half it is right. If football is about belief, every summer brings with it a sense of renewal and what could be. We share that optimism. The fact that they think there is optimism is a concern, because it shows that they're not reading the room. I've said for the last 2 months now, I will chill out when we make our first signing, our second signing, because I will then think, okay, there is an element of competency in what we're doing. Until that point, the optimism can only be, well, it can only be that. It can only be optimism. We have no evidence. It can only be based on blind faith. It can only be based on hope. If we're going to have hope, we're going to have that sense of optimism, that excitement which Brady is talking about, that sense of renewal. Or if she really thinks everyone is really buzzing and excited for the new season, she's wrong. I'm not saying there's nobody, but the vast majority of people watching this now, I'm quite sure, because you say so in the comments, are concerned, that don't have a belief that we're going to be able to pull that rabbit out of the hat to make that sign-in. To most people are not engaged really with the transfer rumours at the moment, because nobody really believes we're going to sign them. I don't expect her to come out and make an amendment to this statement. But I do think that when this piece, and look, go and read it if you want. It's on the West Ham website. I do believe that they probably thought, oh, this is a good message, we'll put that out there, this will make them feel better. I'm not saying nobody cares about stuff at the stadium. People do, but I think people are totally fed up with it. And I do think it's a sticking plaster. I think that's what they're doing, rather than dealing with the main issues at hand. Ticketing is important. Ticket prices are very important. There's a lot of stuff that's very, very important, but stewarding is important. There are important things here, don't get me wrong. I'd like to see her address that. I'd like to see her address the stop and go signs. I'd like to see her address the number of away fans that feel that they can brazenly walk into the stadium in their kit. A Tottenham fan in the home end in a Tottenham shirt, and a Liverpool fan in the West Ham end in a Liverpool shirt, whatever the case may be. This is not acceptable. I want to see that addressed, to know that they're taking that seriously. That's the sort of reply I want. Not this sort of pink and fluffy, generic piece that doesn't really point to any of the real concerns with any real grit or detail. It's vague. It's vague, it's pink, it's fluffy, it talks about optimism, and at the moment I don't see there is any. West Ham fans are worried at the moment. And until they sort it out, or until we see evidence to the contrary, we're going to remain so.